The story begins with Lucy, our female lead, in her class. Although she's bright and intelligent student, while the teacher is lecturing, Lucy is lost in her own little world, completely absorbed in her drawings. When the teacher notices, he calls her out and starts asking her questions. Lucy, being the most intelligent girl, answers every single one of them correctly and the whole class starts clapping, but the irritated teacher still asks her to call her parents the next day as she wasn't paying attention in class. As the bell rings and the class ends, Lucy's best friend rushes over, asking, "So, what's your plan now? Are you really going to call your parents?" Outside the window, a group of boys are seen signaling to her friend, trying to get Lucy's attention. Her friend calls her over, but Lucy is too busy staring at her phone, sending anxious messages to her older brother, hoping he'll come to her rescue. Sadly, her brother, who's at his hostel, doesn't even reply. Meanwhile, the boys approach Lucy and one of them, who happens to have a soft feelings for her, tries to strike up a conversation. But Lucy barely notices, too absorbed in her phone. Just then, her brother finally replies to her messages. But to her disappointment, he refuses to help without even hearing her out. Feeling let down, Lucy huffs and decides she'll just have to drag her mom to school instead. At home, Lucy tries to charm her mom into going to the teacher's meeting with her. But before she can get a word out, her mom surprises her by saying that her brother, Sunjun, is home and upstairs. Lucy's mood immediately lifts, and she excitedly runs to see him, thinking she can win him over for help. But when she opens the door to his room, she freezes. Instead of her brother, she finds an unexpectedly handsome guy sitting there. This is where we are introduced to our hero. His name is Devon, her brother's best friend. Stunned, Lucy blurts out, "Brother, when did you get plastic surgery?" Devon can't help but laugh and teasingly responds, "Why don't you come closer and check for yourself?" Before Lucy can process the surprise, Sunjun walks in, looking confused. "What are you doing here?" he asks. Lucy points at Devon and says, "I thought you had plastic surgery." Sunjun, rolling his eyes, sarcastically retorts, "Do you really think I'd ruin my handsome face like that?" Lucy brushes it off and remembers her real reason for being there. She needs Sunjun's help with the meeting. But as usual, he flat out refuses. Upset, Lucy pouts and starts pretending to cry, calling out, "Mom, he hit me!" Her mom rushes upstairs, scolding Sunjun and agreeing to attend the meeting. Devon watches the whole scene, surprised at how Lucy can get her way. He realizes that while she may seem sweet, she's got a playful side, and she's not above using her charm to get what she wants. Later, Lucy decides to turn to Devon for help instead of her brother. At first, Devon refuses, but Lucy knows exactly how to use her wit and guilt him into agreeing. Reluctantly, Devon gives in, saying he'll think about it. 3 years later. The story picks up 3 years later. Lucy is now in 11th grade, all grown up. One morning, she comes downstairs to see her brother, Sunjun, who's just come back after a long time. But Lucy isn't in the best of moods. Why? Because during his hostel days, he never replied to her messages on time. Sunjun tries to make amends. "Come on, don't be like this. I've been away for so long. You should be happy to see me." After some back and forth, Lucy decides to forgive him. The family has lunch together, and Sunjun asks their dad for the car to bring his and his friend's luggage from their new hostel. It turns out his hostel has moved closer to home. As soon as Lucy hears about the friend, she instantly guesses it's Devon. She volunteers to help, saying, "I should come along. It's only fair I spend some time with you after you've been gone for so long." After school scene, Lucy joins her brother to help with the move. At the new hostel, she spots her brother's car and notices a small fox doll sitting inside. Curious, she picks it up to examine it. Just then, Devon shows up and asks, "Hey, who are you, and why are you touching my stuff?" Lucy freezes. It's Devon. Seeing him again after 3 years makes her cheeks flush. He looks at her for a moment, then smirks. "Wait, aren't you Lucy? That little girl from before?" Lucy, trying to act confident, replies, "I'm not a kid anymore. I'm in 11th grade now. Devin raises an eyebrow and teases, if you're so grown up, why are you still playing with dolls? Lucy, undeterred, grabs the doll and says with a grin, I might be older, but I still love dolls. Devin laughs and gently teases her, clearly amused by her innocence. Later, Lucy reminds Devin of the favor he did for her 3 years ago. Devin nods, and the two start chatting, slowly rekindling their connection. The next day, flashback. The meeting with the teacher. Lucy remembers the teacher's meeting from years ago. Back then, she had been nervous and asked Devin to pose as her older brother, knowing her real brother wouldn't help. But Devin had arrived late, and Lucy had been annoyed and anxious. When he finally showed up, he apologized with a charming smile, which somehow softened her anger. On their way to the teacher's office, Lucy gave Devin a strict warning. Don't say anything to the teacher. Just nod and let her rant. Act like you've known me forever. Devin chuckled, clearly amused. What are you so scared of? Did you hit someone at school or something? Lucy glared at him and dragged him into the office. When the teacher saw Devin, her eyes widened in disbelief. This is your brother? She asked, clearly taken aback by his good looks. Yes, Lucy replied, though she was a bundle of nerves inside. The teacher immediately began lecturing. Lucy is a top student, but she's always so distracted in class. She's either doodling or staring out the window. To Lucy's surprise, Devin wasn't fazed. Instead, he flashed a warm smile, which made Lucy feel strangely proud. Even a classmate who had a crush on Lucy couldn't help but stare at Devin in awe. Is this handsome guy really your brother? Lucy ignored him, focusing on the teacher. Back to present. At the bus stop, Lucy's patience is wearing thin. She checks her phone again, no sign of him. Just as she's about to leave, a familiar voice calls out to her. She turns, and there he is, Devin, rushing toward her, looking just as effortlessly charming as always. But as the day goes on, Lucy can't help but notice something odd. While studying together, she's not paying attention to her notes. She's too busy asking Devin about his life. He notices, sighs, and says, Focus, Lucy. If you don't finish this, you'll be late for school tomorrow. Reluctantly, she picks up the pace. But the next morning, just before she heads out, Devin does something that catches her completely off guard. He slips a notebook into her bag with a wink. Hope this helps, he says, leaving her standing there, slightly stunned. As she clutches the notebook, Lucy's fanboy notices her flustered expression and tries to cheer her up with his usual goofy antics. But despite herself, Lucy can't stop thinking about Devin's small but thoughtful gesture. Evening at home. Later that evening, Sunjun arrives home looking for Lucy. He finds her hiding in her room, refusing to join him for dinner. But when she overhears him mention going out with a friend, something in her shifts. Is it Devin? She wonders, her heart skipping a beat. When she finally meets him at the cafe, she realizes the dinner wasn't with Devin after all. Her disappointment is clear, but it doesn't last long. When Devin appears at the cafe and gets into the car, Lucy can't help but steal a few glances at him. He's drifting off to sleep, looking so tired but still managing to look effortlessly handsome. Devin catches her eye and teases, Why didn't you say hello when I got in? Flustered, Lucy quickly blurts out hello. They're happy? Devin laughs, but when Sunjun jokingly points out how she blushes around him, Devin leans in closer, whispering, Then why do you blush every time you look at me? Before Lucy can respond, her fanboy chimes in, defending her with a playful comment. But inside, Lucy's heart races. Is it just the teasing, or is there something else going on? The restaurant incident. When they arrive at the restaurant, Lucy hesitates to get out of the car. Something about the evening feels off, and Devin notices. You okay? He asks, his concern genuine. Lucy brushes it off, claiming she just feels a bit strange. But what she doesn't know is that Devin has already noticed something no one else did. Her skirt is stained. Without saying a word, he quickly hands her his jacket, asking her to tie it around her waist. Lucy looks at him, stunned by his thoughtfulness. He simply says, "Don't worry. No one will notice." Inside the restaurant, as Devon goes out of his way to make sure she feels comfortable, removing ingredients from her plate, adjusting the temperature, Lucy's heart softens. She watches him, wondering if this kindness is just who he is or if it means something more. Meanwhile, Minnie approached Lucy with an unusually cheerful tone. "Hey Lucy, wanna come shopping with me?" Lucy's face lit up. After all the tension between them, she thought Minnie wasn't upset anymore. Of course. But Minnie's intentions seemed far from innocent. The next scene showed Dewan reaching the school, frantically searching for Lucy. He even asked the school's guard, but the guard informed him that the classrooms were already empty. Dewan's face darkened with worry. At the same time, Minnie led Lucy down a quiet, unfamiliar alley. Lucy hesitated, her instincts screaming that something was off. "Minnie, why are you asking about money so much? And where are we going?" she asked cautiously. Minnie nonchalantly replied, "Relax, we're just going to a cyber cafe." "Stop acting like such a scaredy cat," Lucy frowned. "But you know I'm not supposed to go to places like that." Suddenly, Minnie walked off, leaving Lucy alone. "If you don't want to come, fine. You're always making excuses anyway." Lucy, frustrated and unwilling to abandon her friend, reluctantly followed. Meanwhile, Dewan was still searching for Lucy, asking anyone he came across. "Have you seen a girl with a bandaged leg? She's around this tall," he described. An elderly man pointed in a direction. "I saw someone like that heading that way." Dewan immediately raced off. Lucy and Minnie finally reached the cyber cafe, but instead of a casual outing, 3 older girls confronted them. Their sharp eyes glared at Minnie. "Did you bring the money?" one of them sneered. Minnie hesitated. I don't have enough." The leader's gaze shifted to Lucy. "What about you? Let's see your wallet." Before Lucy could react, they snatched her purse and scoffed. $50? That's all? Pathetic." Lucy's heart raced as the girls cornered them. "Bring more money tomorrow," they threatened, their voices icy. "Or else we'll come find you at school." Lucy stood frozen, her hands trembling. Minnie finally whispered, "I'm sorry, Lucy. I didn't mean for this to happen." Lucy's shock turned to anger. "You brought me here on purpose, didn't you? You've been treating me like this since Frozen's birthday. You ignored me when I got hurt during the high jump, and now this?" Minnie stammered, trying to explain herself, but Lucy shouted, "Don't ever call me your friend again. You're horrible." She stormed off, clutching her purse tightly. Lucy didn't get far before tears blurred her vision. Her legs felt weak, and she nearly collapsed when a familiar voice called out, "Lucy." She looked up to see Dewan running toward her. Relief flooded her as he reached her. "What are you doing here?" "This place isn't safe," he said, his voice firm. Lucy couldn't hold back anymore. She burst into tears, her sobs shaking her body. Dewan immediately pulled her into a hug, his voice softening. "Hey, why are you crying? What happened?" But Lucy couldn't form the words. The scene faded out with Dewan holding Lucy close, whispering reassurances. Next episode preview. The story picks up with Lucy finally explaining everything to Dewan. The bullying, Minnie's betrayal, and her fears. Dewan, furious, convinces her to report the incident to their teachers and parents. To lift her spirits, he takes her to a beautiful park where the blooming flowers bring a smile to her face. However, the tension rises when Sanjayan finds out about the bullies. He gathers his friends and confronts the girls, teaching them a lesson they'll never forget. Minnie, overwhelmed with guilt, writes Lucy an apology note before being transferred to another school. Lucy excelled in every subject except physics, which frustrated her endlessly. Noticing her struggles, her mother suggested, "We'll arrange a tutor for you." And to Lucy's surprise, the tutor turned out to be none other than Sanjayan. Initially, things didn't go well between Lucy and Sanjayan. Whenever Lucy asked a question more than once, Sanjayan would lose patience. "I can't do this," he snapped one day. "Teaching you is impossible. I'm out." The next day, Lucy's mom informed her that a new tutor would be arriving soon. Excited to make a good impression, Lucy got ready early. But as she went to grab water from the kitchen, she froze. There stood Dawan. "What are you doing here?" she asked, wide-eyed. "I'm your new tutor," Dawan replied with a cheeky grin. Lucy couldn't hide her delight. From then on, the two spent hours together, not just studying but playing games and cracking jokes. One day, Lucy secretly started taking photos of Dawan while he was focused on teaching. Noticing her actions, Dawan smirked and struck a dramatic pose. Embarrassed, Lucy pretended to adjust her camera settings. "Why are you taking his pictures and not mine?" Sanjayan interrupted. "Am I not handsome enough?" Lucy burst out laughing. "You look more like a monkey than anything else," she teased before running off. Later that evening, Lucy found herself drawing in her sketchbook, giggling at Dawan's antics. She even doodled a pinky promise they had made earlier. Suddenly, Dawan entered the room, catching her off guard. Lucy quickly hid her sketchbook. "What are you hiding?" Dawan asked, leaning closer. "Nothing important," Lucy mumbled, changing the subject. The two spent the rest of the evening talking about art and their dreams. The next day, Dawan, noticing Lucy's lack of interest in physics, suggested an unconventional approach. "Let's go to the museum," he proposed. After getting permission from Sanjayan, the trio headed out. At the museum, Dawan explained complex concepts through interactive exhibits, making science fun for Lucy. Her favorite was a plant exhibit where flowers lit up at her touch. "This is amazing," she exclaimed. For the first time, she felt excited about physics. Later, while sitting by a display, Lucy asked Dawan about his dreams. "I want to design the ultimate video game," he revealed. "That's my passion." Curious, Lucy asked, "What about a girlfriend?" Dawan chuckled. "I don't have time for that. But don't worry, if I ever get one, you'll be the first to meet her." Lucy felt a pang of jealousy, but smiled. "Fine, but she better be nice. I'll make sure she's good enough for you." Inspired by their conversation, Lucy drew their pinky promise in her sketchbook, but when Dawan walked in, she quickly hid it again. The story took a turn when Lucy misplaced her sketchbook at the museum. The next day, the museum staff informed her that Dawan had taken it home. Lucy panicked. "What if he saw my drawings about him?" she thought, blushing. Determined to avoid awkwardness, Lucy came up with a fake story about liking someone else. But her plan backfired spectacularly when Sanjayan overheard her fabricated tale about dating someone through an app. The revelation caused chaos at home. "How dare you start dating at this age?" Sanjayan yelled, livid. "I'll find that guy and teach him a lesson." Lucy regretted her lie but couldn't backtrack without exposing her true feelings for Dawan. The tension escalated when Dawan and Sanjayan confronted Lucy about her boyfriend. Dawan teased, "So, what's his name? What's he studying?" Caught off guard, Lucy blurted, "He's in college, doing graduation, and he's 5 years older than me." Dawan's jaw dropped. 5 years older? Are you serious? Trying to deflect the conversation, Lucy mumbled, "I don't want to talk about it." The episode ended with Lucy realizing the mess her lie had created, as Sanjayan vowed to uncover the truth, while Dawan remained confused about Lucy's strange behavior. Sanjayan firmly told Lucy, "Focus on your studies for now. Once you graduate high school, then think about relationships." Reluctantly, Lucy agreed and decided to concentrate on her academic. Meanwhile, Dawan, back at his hostel, was playing games and eating noodles when he received an urgent call from the hospital. The message was grim. His father's condition had worsened. Without wasting a second, Dawan packed his bags and rushed to his hometown. A few days later, Lucy began wondering why Dawan hadn't been showing up for her lessons. Concerned, she asked Sanjayan, who reluctantly revealed, Dawan had to leave for his hometown due to an emergency. Upset, Lucy went to her room and texted Dawan, "Are you okay? Is something wrong? Why did you leave so suddenly?" Dawan reassured her, "Everything's fine. It was just a family matter." Tentatively, Lucy asked, Will you come back for your graduation ceremony at least? Dewan replied, Of course. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Hearing this, Lucy felt a wave of relief and began preparing a small gift for him. On the other hand, Dewan found himself smiling after their conversation. Talking to Lucy always lifted his spirits, even during difficult times. Later that evening, there was a knock at Dewan's door. When he opened it, a young woman stood outside. Her identity remained unknown for now, but her presence visibly disturbed Dewan. Can I come in? She asked with a faint smile. Dewan replied curtly, No, let's talk outside. The girl pressed on, Your graduation is coming up. After that, are you planning to return to your hometown for good? Dewan nodded, and she hesitated before asking, Can I come to your graduation ceremony with you? No, Dewan said firmly, refusing both her request and the envelope of money she offered. Defeated, the girl left quietly. Her visit left Dewan feeling uneasy, though the reasons were yet to unfold. The graduation ceremony. The day finally arrived. Lucy, along with her brother and grandfather, attended Dewan's graduation ceremony. As she spotted Dewan across the hall, her heart raced. He looked as confident as ever, laughing with his friends. Lucy couldn't take her eyes off him. Unbeknownst to her, Dewan had also noticed her. Their gazes met, and for a moment, the bustling crowd seemed to fade away. After the ceremony, Lucy approached Dewan with a bouquet of flowers. Smiling shyly, she handed it to him. This is for you, not as a student, but as my teacher. Dewan chuckled. Thank you, Lucy. Their conversation was cut short as Dewan's friends called him over for photos. Lucy, not wanting to intrude, decided to snap pictures from a distance. She overheard Dewan's friends discussing how they would all be parting ways after graduation, moving to different hometowns and starting new chapters in their lives. Once Dewan was alone, Lucy gathered her courage and asked, Will you forget me once you go back to your hometown? Dewan looked at her, surprised. Never. I'll visit you whenever I get the chance. Relieved, Lucy smiled and said, Then let's take some pictures together before you leave. The two clicked several adorable photos, their bond evident in each frame. That night, the evening turned lively with celebrations and drinks. Sanjayan, in particular, drank excessively despite Dewan's attempts to stop him. Eventually, Dewan had to carry him home. As Sanjayan drunkenly mumbled, Don't forget us when you leave, the commotion brought the whole family downstairs. Sanjayan's mom helped him to bed, insisting that Dewan stay the night. Later, as the night grew quieter, Dewan sat alone outside, lost in thought. Lucy noticed him and decided to join. Why are you sitting here all by yourself? She asked, smiling gently. Dewan turned to her, his face softening. Her presence seemed to calm his restless mind. After a moment of silence, Lucy asked, What's bothering you? You've seemed upset all day. Dewan finally admitted, I'm worried about my father's health and the financial debt my family is under. Hearing this, Lucy confidently said, Don't worry. When I grow up and start earning, I'll help you pay off all your debt. Together, we'll manage everything. Dewan couldn't help but laugh. You're so serious. But don't worry about me. When you start earning, spend your money on yourself, buy nice things, travel, and enjoy life. Lucy nodded, smiling. But deep down, she knew she meant every word of her promise. As Lucy returned to her room, she lay in bed, her heart full but her mind restless. Somewhere, she felt that her bond with Dewan was far more meaningful than she could express in words. As Dewan opened the door, Lucy felt a strange emptiness. She had waved him off, but deep down, she was not happy about it. However, she still gave him a polite farewell. Once Dewan left, Lucy checked her phone and found a message from him. I'm taking an early morning flight to my hometown today. Please take care of yourself and focus on your studies. When you get good marks, I'll send you presents. Lucy smiled, but her thoughts lingered on the promise Dewan had made. She reminded him, Don't forget my promise. Dewan probably thought she was talking about the presents, but she was referring to the promise they made about their relationship in the museum. Lucy was still deep in thought when she checked her grades. She had been studying hard, determined to get into Dawan's hometown university. Her marks had to be perfect, but she was ready to work day and night to achieve her goal. As time passed, Lucy did everything she could to keep up her grades. Dawan kept sending her presents every time she shared her exam results, and Lucy felt a sense of joy. However, one day Lucy overheard a conversation between her brother and his friend. Someone mentioned that Dawan had gotten a girlfriend. Hearing this shocked Lucy to her core. She immediately confronted her brother. "Is it true that Dawan has a girlfriend now?" Her brother confirmed it, which made Lucy feel devastated. She went straight to her room, feeling heartbroken, thinking, how could he break our promise? She was so upset that she impulsively booked a flight to Dawan's hometown. When she landed, her brother called to check on her. "Where are you? Your tuition session is about to start?" Lucy quickly replied, "I'm here, in Dawan's hometown." Her brother was shocked. "What? Why? Are you serious?" He couldn't understand why Lucy had gone all the way there. In a fit of anger, he demanded that she stay put and threatened to tell Dawan to pick her up immediately. He warned her, "If you meet this guy, you won't hear the end of it." Lucy's parents, upon learning about her unannounced trip, were furious. "You shouldn't have gone this far. If that boy shows up, we'll call the police." Lucy sat down, feeling a mixture of guilt and confusion. It was then that she saw the girl everyone had been calling Dawan's girlfriend. Seeing her only made Lucy's heart ache more. She confronted Dawan, her voice trembling. "What are you doing here with her? Don't you care about how worried my family is?" Dawan, trying to stay calm, replied, "You promised me you'd focus on your studies, not let anything distract you. How can I keep my promise when you didn't keep yours?" Lucy, unable to hold back her tears, admitted, "You're right. I'm sorry. I broke my promise because of you." Dawan, his expression softening, reached out to her. "Don't worry. You'll find someone better than me. You just need to focus on yourself and your future." But Lucy, still crying, whispered, "I know he won't wait for me. He's already moved on with someone else." Dawan, concerned but resolute, reassured her, "Lucy, it's okay. You're still growing, and there's someone out there who will wait for you." He gently suggested, "Come, let's have lunch. You've traveled far, and you need some rest." But Lucy shook her head, firmly stating, "No, I just want to go home." Reluctantly, Dawan agreed, but before she left, he told her to freshen up. Lucy walked to the washroom, but on her way, she couldn't stop crying. The weight of everything, the broken promises, her lost love, overwhelmed her. When she returned, Dawan had already booked her return ticket. She hesitated to take the money for the ticket, but Dawan insisted she accept it. He handed her a small present. "I never got this from you at the graduation ceremony." Lucy gave a faint smile. She could feel a shift in her feelings, but she was still unsure of everything. Dawan, noticing her change in demeanor, seemed to understand. Before she left, Lucy handed Dawan a teddy bear, the one he had given her long ago. "Take this as my gift to you," she said softly. Dawan was confused. "Why are you giving this back to me?" Lucy simply replied, "Just keep it. Think of it as my way of saying goodbye." With those words, Lucy left, feeling an ache in her chest. Dawan stood there, watching her go, knowing deep down that things were never going to be the same between them again. Lucy had no idea what was happening in Lucky's world. Finally, Lucky had arrived in her hometown. As she stepped out of the airport, she saw her brother, Sanjin, waiting for her. Unlike the past, when he would shout at her or lecture her, this time he simply hugged her tightly. Lucky couldn't control her emotions and started crying. Sanjin could tell she was heartbroken from her betrayal in love, so he tried to console her, but Lucky refused to stop crying. Back at home, Lucky's parents were full of questions, especially her father, who was astonished that Lucky had traveled so far. But Sanjin gestured to them to be quiet, understanding that his sister was already going through a lot. She was deeply regretful of her actions. Lucky packed away all her memories of Dewan into a box, trying her best to move on from him, even though it wasn't easy. Months passed, and Lucky eventually graduated from high school. She had successfully enrolled in her dream university, the very one Dewan had studied at. Here, we meet 3 new girls who will become Lucky's friends. The first girl is Rose, who loves blogging. The second girl is Min, who is cool and collected. And the third girl is May, who's always ready to lend a hand. When May dropped her books, Lucky helped her pick them up, and they quickly bonded. As they got to know each other, Lucky introduced them to the rest of her circle. Rose, who loves making friends, invited them all to her birthday party, urging them to bring their friends along. The invitation was warmly accepted, and soon they were all heading to the party. At Rose's birthday party, everyone was waiting for the others to arrive. Eventually, Ming showed up with her friends, one of whom seemed to be particularly interested in Rose. The party turned lively as they began singing karaoke. In the midst of the fun, Dewan appeared as well. However, he didn't see Lucky, nor did she notice him. Both of them went their separate ways, mingling with their own friends. Later in the evening, Lucky met a girl who was being introduced to a new guy. This was the same girl everyone had thought was Dewan's girlfriend, but it turned out she wasn't his girlfriend at all, just a friend. Lucky couldn't help but feel some relief. Dewan wasn't the same person anymore. He was moving on, and so would she. As the night went on, Ming and Lucky found themselves talking. Ming was clearly interested in her, but Lucky wasn't ready to open her heart again. She needed some fresh air, so she stepped outside. By mistake, she grabbed Rose's jacket, which contained a cigarette lighter. Lucky was about to return it when Dewan called her name. Lucky froze. She had not expected to see Dewan after all this time. The years had passed, but the emotions were still raw. Neither of them knew what to say at first. The awkwardness lingered, and yet the meeting felt strangely inevitable. The scene continues with Lucy stepping outside for some fresh air after the karaoke session. By mistake, she grabbed her friend's jacket, which had a cigarette lighter in it. Dewan, who had been sitting nearby, called out to her. When he saw her, he was shocked and immediately asked, "Are you smoking now?" Lucy quickly explained, "No, it's my friend's." But Dewan wasn't convinced. "Then you've started drinking too, haven't you?" he continued. Lucy reluctantly admitted, "Yes, just a little. But I'm trying to focus on my studies." Dewan was frustrated. "So, why have you been ignoring all my calls and messages? You've been here for quite some time, and I haven't heard from you." Lucy lied. "Actually, I've been busy with my studies and part-time job. That's why I didn't have time to look for you in your hometown." Dewan's frustration was evident. "After all this time, you couldn't even make the effort to find me?" Lucy was quiet, not knowing how to respond. As the conversation continued, Dewan expressed his anger over the situation. He couldn't understand why she had cut him out of her life. But Lucy, feeling overwhelmed, excused herself and went back inside to her friends. "When are you all leaving?" she asked them. Rose replied, "We'll leave by 11. This time felt like an eternity to Lucy, who had been warned by her mother to be careful and return early. She decided to say goodbye to her friends and leave for the hostel alone. As she walked back, Dewan followed her and questioned, "Why are you saying all these things to me now?" He asked again, "Where are your friends? Weren't you supposed to go back to the hostel with them?" Lucy explained, "They're staying a little longer, so I'll go on my own." Dewan, worried for her, offered to drive her to the hostel. "Please, talk to me. Let's clear up the misunderstandings between us," he pleaded. During the drive, Dewan asked, "Did you come to this university because of that boy from your dating app? This is his hometown, right?" Lucy quickly denied. "No, that's not true at all." They reached the university, and Dewan handed Lucy some medicine, saying, "Take this before you sleep, or you'll have a terrible headache in the morning." Lucy took the medicine and thanked him. The next day, Lucy's friends were discussing the party. Rose asked, "Did you get any messages from him? When you left, he kept asking about you." Lucy checked her phone and saw a message from Dewan, reminding her not to go back to the hostel alone next time, and that he would drop her off instead. Rose and the others teased Lucy, saying, "See, he's definitely interested in you." However, Lucy wasn't comfortable with the teasing. She hadn't realized how much she had been avoiding the fact that she still had feelings for Dewan. Trying to change the subject, Lucy sat down with her friends, saying, "I need to tell you something important," she began. "I have a friend who likes her brother's friend, a game developer." Rose and Ling were curious. Ling asked, "Which game did he develop?" "I'm really into gaming," Lucy replied. "It's called Sandling," and Ling was surprised. "That's the hit game of the year. I'm still playing it." Lucy realized that Dewan had achieved quite a bit of success. Rose, intrigued, asked more about the relationship, and Lucy responded, "The girl is 20 and the guy is 25. The scene unfolds with Lucy and Dewan as they continue their interactions under the growing tension between them. Lucy, not responding to Dewan's teasing about being called a little girl, is preoccupied with the situation at hand, getting Dewan to the hospital. Their journey takes a turn when they accidentally collide, with Dewan's forehead touching Lucy's. Both are startled, unsure of what just happened, but they quickly brush it off, trying to act like nothing occurred. Finally, they arrive at the hospital, where the doctor informs them that Dewan's condition isn't good, and he needs to stay for treatment. Lucy, worried, waits in the waiting room, and during this time, she receives a call from her mother asking where she is. Lucy explains the situation, telling her mom that Dewan had been injured, and she had brought him to the hospital for treatment. Her mother becomes concerned about Dewan, explaining that he had lost his mother when he was 18 and has been struggling ever since, working overtime and neglecting his health. Lucy, feeling empathetic toward Dewan, decides to stay at the hospital with him, even though Dewan insists that she should go home. But Lucy refuses, wanting to be there to take care of him. Dewan, initially resistant, finally accepts her presence. She takes care of him tenderly, wiping his face and helping him with his fever. As she's cleaning his face, Dewan closes his eyes, and the situation takes a romantic turn. Lucy, noticing the closeness, becomes flustered and quickly rushes to the bathroom, feeling awkward. In the bathroom, Lucy checks her phone and sees several voice messages from Dewan, which she dismisses in a hurry. She also remembers their previous intimate moment, when they accidentally kissed after the crash, and feels embarrassed by it. Meanwhile, Dewan, unaware of her emotional turmoil, remains in the room, waiting for her to return. Later, as Lucy prepares to leave, she checks her phone again and notices that Dewan had texted her about watching a movie together after their meeting.